Welcome to the Universal Dancer podcast with your host Leslie Zehr, author of The Alchemy of Dance and the Alchemia Remedies. Coming to you live from Cairo, Egypt, the ancient land of Chem. Journey with us to explore sacred dance, the sacred arts, the mystical and the magical. Join a community of like-minded souls seeking to understand the cosmic dance of co-creation through the sacred arts. Come along and expand your mind, ignite your creativity, and explore something new and something old.
Welcome to the podcast. For those of you who are here live, let us know where you're here from. And thank you for joining us today and at the previous podcast. And thank you for your comments and your emails. I appreciate all the feedback and to know what you're enjoying and what's going on. So I have another special guest for you today. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. Dr. Deborah Kern is a health scientist, visionary teacher, and guide. From the rainforest of Costa Rica to the foothills of the Himalayas, to the south of India, to the jungles of Bali, to the shores of Maui, to the interior of Mexico, Deb has traveled far and wide to study and apprentice with master teachers, shamans, yogis, herbalists, and healers. Her varied studies and experiences have helped her evolve practices and tools that help women embody the divine feminine and live pleasurable, purposeful, spirit-infused lives. Dr. Deb's decades of practice as a health educator, personal trainer, yoga teacher, Nia teacher, and yoga therapist, combined with her life experiences, have given her insights not found in books. She has observed time and time again that when we take actions in our own healing and become aware of the patterns that disconnect body and mind, miracles can occur in every area of our lives. And she adores inspiring others to experience these miracles. She's the author of Everyday Wellness for Women and Create the Body Your Soul Desires, Creatrix of a healing movement practice called PranaShakti dance, and the mom of an amazing young man. Dr. Kern studied nursing at Vanderbilt University and holds a BA and an MBA from the University of Texas at Austin, as well as a PhD in health sciences from Texas Women's University in Denton, Texas. In addition, she is a black belt Nia teacher, a certified integral hatha yoga instructor, a Phoenix Rising yoga therapist, and a mindful change coach. Let's welcome Deb to the show. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Deb and I have only just met, so this is a wonderful opportunity to get to know you better. So I always like to just start with how you got into dance. Where did your dance journey begin?
Wow. I so wanted to take a ballet class when I was 5. And I'll never forget, my mom took me to the ballet studio, and the teacher had this stick that she had a stick in her hand, and she took one look at me and took that stick and pounded on the ground and said to my mother in front of me, she said, "She's much too large to dance." And that ended my dance career at age 5. I never took a dance class. So in me was this huge desire to dance. And anytime I heard music, I was swirling and twirling. We could be in a shopping center or in a church, anywhere there was music, my body wanted to move to it. But I internalized the fact that I was too large to dance until I was in my master's degree program, and it was 1980. And I'm sitting all day long, sitting all day long, sitting all day long. Someone invited me to take what was called aerobic dance. You probably remember aerobic dance. And I went, and everything was like jumping jacks and knee lifts, but it was the closest thing to dancing I had been able to ever do. And tears, I remember tears just spurting out of my eyes. My body was ecstatic. And I began like that, Leslie. I didn't have enough money to keep taking those classes as a student. So what I did was I would take a class and remember as much as I could. And then I had a little Panasonic flip top cassette tape recorder and one Hooked on Classics cassette. So anyone who's of a certain age might remember Hooked on Classics. And I would take that and I would rent or put my name on a racquetball court at the university, and I would invite my friends to come into that racquetball court with me. I would put on the Hooked on Classics tape, and we would do jumping jacks and knee lifts. I would just call out whatever I could remember. They would each give me $1. And when I had enough dollars to take a class, I would take another class. So I started like that. Now, many things have happened in the 41 years since then in terms of my exposure to different movement forms, but that's how I started. That's the way it all started.
Wow. Yeah, I can relate to that, being discouraged because of your body size or your body shape, I guess. So yeah, it's unfortunate. But again, you overcame that. So sometimes maybe we need to be challenged.
I think it's actually a gift. What I see as a gift is that since I'm not classically trained and I have created my own healing method of dance, and I train teachers, and what I've noticed is oftentimes teachers who've been trained in performance dance, it takes some undoing for them to know how to feel their actual inside out dance because they've practiced so much looking a certain way. And since I didn't get that, I never got that particular training on how to make myself conform to a certain look. All of my dance now really comes from deep inside of me out. So so I am actually grateful at this point that I didn't have to unlearn that part.
I think it's true. Those experiences are what make us what we are and build whatever modality it is that we have. So since you've mentioned it, maybe you can tell us a little bit about PranaShakti and what it is or what it looks like. Just give us, for those of us who've never experienced, just give us a kind of an overview of what it's like or what it would be like to do a class.
My intention for a class like that is specifically to get into the areas in the body where we hold energetic blocks, blocked emotions, energetic blocks. And so I want to back up a little bit. One of the experiences I had was studying with a tantrika yogini in the jungle of Bali. And she taught us an ancient understanding of the way energy can form knots, K-N-O-T-S, knots, those kind of knotted up energy. And there are three main areas called granthis in Sanskrit. And I had such a profound experience of those energetic knots in my own body and what it took to undo them, that started really, that's what I wanted to bring back into my dance classes. So over the years, I've figured out how to, you have to approach them in a certain way. You can't just come into someone, you can't come into your body and just say, get out of there and rip them out because it doesn't work that way. So I've figured out a way to ground, do a certain kind of breathing and grounding and moving of the fluids, getting the joints fluid, and a way of heating. So I use movement to heat those areas. And I think about it a little bit like doing laundry, to be honest. Imagine having a stain on your clothes. You start with a pre-soak, and then you might spray some stain remover and give a good brush and scrub it. So in class, I get those areas heated, And then I go in and I call it agitation in my mind, like an agitation cycle in a washing machine where you really agitate the water. I go in and with movement, agitate the areas where the energies are stuck. Agitate, agitate. I go back again, heat and agitate, heat and agitate. And then at a certain moment, and I can always tell when it is, there's a certain moment where we liberate. So after heating and agitating, heating and agitating, heating and agitating, there's a liberation movement piece. And there's this liberation turns into expression. So it allows for now, once that energy is liberated, then it allows women, I'm going to say women, it's not that men can't do this, it's just that my classes tend to all be women. So what happens is women begin having a physical felt experience of expressing themselves that they couldn't have done when they were stuck. And then after the liberation, the next phase is to provide some structuring back into the body. And once structured back into the body, I have a time for just assimilation and integration. So it's a 13-step sort of, I consider it like a bit of a wave. Although in that wave, we go through a spin cycle, like heat, agitate several times to get those areas. So that's what it is. That's what we do in there.
And it's a workshop. I mean, are there like levels or all of this is kind of done in one session? Wow.
All of this is done in one session. And I, because this has been organic, I never intended to create a teacher training at all. I just was doing me. I was healing myself. All the trainings I've taken, I'm so grateful for my training in Nia, in Hatha Yoga, I took Kundalini training, and I've studied Ayurveda. Ayurveda also infuses my understanding. I've studied Ayurveda since 1990. So all of these understandings infuse it. So I never intended to, and I don't even consider myself having created a modality. What I do want to do on my 60th birthday, what happened is on that day, my 60th birthday, I got a direct sort of like a message that says, don't let this die in you. Tell other people what you figured out. So I just love sharing what I figured out, that you can use consciously chosen movement in this way and have a pretty dramatic effect. And here's what I discovered, Leslie, when I did my first teacher training, I can get through the bulk of the 13 steps in just 21 minutes. I can take it and make it longer. And my classes are 60 to 75 minutes, but I can do one sort of pass through in a 21-minute period. So, so anyway, that's what happens. So it can be a workshop. It could be a workshop. It could be like I have taught full days where I just take hours in each piece and help pull it out. But yeah.
Legacy. That's the word that comes. I think that happens to you at 60, maybe. I had the same experience. Yeah.
How about, yeah.
But I think that that's true because, I mean, I agree with your whole process in that I think we can only teach what we've learned. We have to walk the talk, and then that's how we have authenticity, I guess. And then, yes, I think it is a shame if it just dies with us. So I agree that we need to share it and pass it on. And then hopefully those people can integrate too and bring a piece of themselves to it and create something new, maybe even that with whatever gifts they have personally. Yeah.
There's no question that's actually already happening. Some of the teachers, they say to me, is it okay if I do this? And I say, yes, consider what I've given you more like a meal. You eat it and it becomes you. I'm not going to tell you what to do with the food you ate. I'm not going to say, make a liver cell with that and make a fingernail with that. I'm just saying, here's the meal. And you'll integrate it into your whole being, and it'll come out something that the world needs. I'm sure of that. It'll come out helpful. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about emotions, because you and moving emotions with the dance. I think this is such an important thing that let's focus on that for a little while. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, when I did my PhD, my research area was mind-body interactions and healing through movement. And part of what informed me there was the understanding of emotions as energy in motion. So there's no bad emotion. Emotions inform us, except if the emotion is stuck, in which case it creates a blockage that then I imagine it's if you look at traditional Chinese medicine, or even Ayurveda has an understanding of energy flowing through our bodies. So as long as energy is moving and going and being used, we don't have a problem. But once there's a stuckness somewhere where the energy isn't moving and emotion doesn't get to move, then it creates like a dam or a blockage, and that creates a drought, if you will, on one side of the block, and it creates a flood on the other side, like a dam in a river. And so, and there are some just major categories of emotions that it's easy to sense. So as a teacher, and I'm sure many people listening, many of us who are drawn to dance, I sense with my body. I sense my own self, but I can sense in others in emotional quality. So over the years, I've realized that there's a lot of stuck anger. There's a lot of stuck fear. There's a lot of stuck grief. There's a lot of stuck confusion. There is a lot of stuck shame. These are the main things that I see stuck, and they get preventing emotions like joy, the feelings of peace, the feelings of love, the feelings of harmony. So I play with those emotions, and I use lyrics and sounds. The actual sound of music can evoke feelings of grief or feelings of anger, and I know where those tend to stay in the body, and so then I use movement at the same time, and you can see those feelings start to unhook one bit by bit, and the release oftentimes is tears. Sometimes it's laughter, but many times tears in class. And people who are new, I mean, all the time say, why am I crying? And I would say it's simply the release of the emotions. Finally, they're moving. And many women have told me they were afraid to let that stuck emotion move. They were afraid it would engulf them. They were afraid it would just take them down, or it would become all of who they were. And they're so surprised to find out that that emotion is really just, it's energy. And when it has a chance to move, it frees them up to experience something different. 9 times out of 10, it moves them into higher frequencies or higher states of consciousness, which feel more like courage or joy or peace. So that's what I've discovered. That's how it's
and then they become conscious of this, or it's more about like transmuting that energy into something else, or do they actually process whatever that stuck emotion was? Do they work with that?
Most of the time in class, it just goes and they don't process it. Most of the time, there's no need to even talk about it anymore. Many times, because of the people that come to my class, they already have been doing therapy, and they're actually aware. I tend to attract women who are on a spiritual path. They are aware. They know there are things. We all know we have blind spots, but they're aware of themselves. They're self-aware, and they're even aware. They've done therapy about the divorce or the loss or the death or the injustice or the betrayal. So they've done the talk therapy, but it's still actually in their bodies. And so I have a lot of psychotherapists who are in my class, a lot of coaches who also say, oh my gosh, this is the final piece, because while it's important, I believe in all the modalities. They're also helpful. And it's wonderful to have an understanding of something. It's wonderful to be able to journal it. All of those are good pieces. And we've got to move it out of our bodies too. So in class, the short answer is, most of the time, there's not even a need to analyze it or name the thing. It just feels so good that it moved. But sometimes, especially if I'm teaching in a retreat setting where there's spaciousness, I might sort of hold the pattern for a little longer. So I might be teaching the dance. I might get them into the agitation stage and leave them there. And then I usually use big pieces of paper and crayons or markers, and let them write. They might write words or draw, somehow express on paper, what is that thing that's stuck inside of you? And it comes out so that they can actually go back and then journal about it later. So I find that that's super helpful as well. So both and.
Well, I lost you there for a moment.
I know. That's how you put that.
So if I'm repeating something that you just said, I apologize.
No problem.
Are there specific movements that you use for different things, or is it? You said there was specific music, like with different song lyrics or things, but are there specific movements as well for moving the energy?
Yes. So moving hip circles, I'll use a lot of hip circles to get into energy that's any stuck energy that has to do with grasping addictive nature, addictions, that emotions that are fueling needs. So insecurities, confusions, fears. I'll use a lot of hip circles and in the beginning, and then what would look like maybe belly dance, fast hips, left, right, back, forth, fast agitations. And that moves up into the solar plexus. I'll use a lot of solar plexus twisting, forward and back, like standing cat cow in the motions. There's so much that gets stuck in that whole solar plexus area, and then in the heart and the throat. So anywhere between the heart and throat. So shimmies, big like flying motions where the chest is expanding and contracting this way, and the head nodding yes to get the throat to move. I don't do a lot of head circles in class because again, I'm not teaching trained dancers, and I don't take the time to teach all the proper alignment and everything. But even just the forward and back, which is safe, is enough to get this throat chakra opening and then sounding. So there's a lot of opportunities, and I'll actually kind of push that so the energy can come out as sounding. So those are some of the ones that I would say.
And you're doing all of this in one workshop or?
In 1 hour, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you'll have to come to class now that I'm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite something. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you do it like on a weekly basis, or people can do it at home, or what's?
They can do it at home. So I've for so long in my home community, when we were having classes in person. So for 18, 20 years, I was teaching every Wednesday and Friday. That was just my time, every Wednesday and Friday. And some women would come twice a week. I think it's enough. Coming once a week in my body mind would be ideal, at least once a week. So you don't get too much of a buildup, so you can keep addressing all the things in your body. And but once a week would be enough. I do teach twice a week and have a lot of people who come twice a week. It feels really good. And because of Western lifestyle being sedentary, and even more so now, I do make sure that there's a good bit of it that is cardiovascular. It gets heart pumping because we need it. And anyway, I make sure that that's in there as well. So yes, you're moving all the emotions, and you'll have a cardiovascular workout. So I just think it's important. I'm busy. I am still a single mom, but my son's older now. But when I was, busy working single mom, I didn't have time to do an hour of things just for my emotions and then an hour or something for my physical fitness. So I wanted to put it all together into one thing.
Well, it's all related. That's probably a healthier way to do it anyway, if you can.
Right.
If you know how to do that.
Yeah.
And then there are levels, or it's really more about like the experience of it and just doing that workout, for lack of a better word, once a week or however many times.
No levels. And I don't think I've ever taught the same class twice in all these years, because I also take into account the astrology, what's happening sociologically, and then what's happening within my community. So if there's for example, if there's a death in the community, or if there's a birth in the community, or if there's a big celebration, if someone's just having her first grandchild, another woman's having a baby, it's like a red tent. So we have women. When I taught in-person live classes, our age range was 26 to 78, all in the same room. And so we had the gamut of what happens in a woman's life that gets woven into class as well. So I have the astrology, what's happening in our culture, and then what's happening in my community. And all of that gets woven into each class. So every class is different. And I also, because I teach Wednesdays and Fridays, Wednesdays governed by Mercury. So I deal a little bit more with thought patterns and words on Wednesday, Mercury. On Friday, governed by Venus. So Friday always has a little bit more of a luscious feminine. There'll be more sensual movement on a Friday class. So there's so many layers to what happens when I teach, which I know you do too, because I know that you see the sacredness. It's all related. It's related to everything. It's not just a dance class. Sometimes I don't even want to call it. I mean, I love the word dance, but people put dance in such a tiny box. And to me, it's the dance of the cosmos through our bodies, expressing in an infinite number of ways. So my classes can be quite different depending on what's happening and what I sense that the community is needing.
And we need to get back to that. We used to live that way. We used to take into account the phases of the moon and where the stars were and the seasons and all of that. And I think we've forgotten that, and especially for women, because we are attuned to that. We just, through our bodies, I think we're attuned to that. So I think it's important to acknowledge that and to bring that back into our consciousness, because we need to reconnect with that. I'm sure that has a huge impact on our psyche, that disconnection. So bringing that in. And this is a wonderful way to do that too, to do it through a class. That if astrology is not your thing, it doesn't matter. And I also think that's the best way to learn it, is just to be a part of it and to talk about these things. You don't have to study them. We just need to experience it. And that's what ancient cultures used to do. So that's wonderful I'm glad to hear you're doing that.
I love hearing how you talk about it, because I'll say in class, again, all of this just happened organically. I didn't plan, I'm going to include the astrology. It's just that it's how I live my life. And sometimes there would be big transits or things happening. So I would show up to class and say, whoa, I learned this is happening. No wonder I've been feeling this. Are you all feeling this? And they'd go, yeah, I've been feeling that too. And it's like, this just gives us a broader understanding. I'm not an astrologer. I just appreciate it. And so I'll bring it to class out of a deep appreciation and a curiosity and ask, are you sensing any of this as well? And of course, you mentioned the moons, which, I can tell you this, I was never aware of whether it was a new moon or a full moon until I was 52. And I actually grieved that as a woman, that here I am in a woman's body that cycles with the moon. And for 52 years, over half a century, I didn't know. And so I relish in it now. And I'm postmenopausal now. And so I even relish in it more, because now I feel like my body may not have its own personal moon. I can feel the cycles for real. And I kind of feel like I got reborn and I felt like I had the grace of sort of a second chance at being alive as a human woman and feeling the connection with the moon. And it's never too late to do that. And it's miraculous. And I'm not an astrologer, but I'm a woman and I can feel it. So it's very exciting to me.
And I think that we as women, because I think the feminine was lost by everyone, and we as women have to see the importance of that, of not only stepping into masculine roles, but to revive the feminine, which is this connection to nature and this connection to the cycles and all of these things. And we need to do it. And I think you have clearly expressed how it changed your life to do that. And that's so important. And I wish more women would do it. You don't need to study it. As you said, you're not an astrologer. It doesn't matter. The more you work with these things, the more familiar they are. And I think that in more indigenous cultures, that's just a part of life. And, we lost it somewhere along the way, but we need to reclaim that, because it does make your life much fuller to bring in the cosmos and everything around you, as well as your own personal space. But I think too, like you were saying, what I see in the women's circles that I've led is that whether it was dance or moon gatherings or whatever, that we seem to be resonating with each other once we've formed a circle, and that we are often addressing the same issues outside of ourselves that we can all bring back to this circle. So I think that's another interesting phenomenon of women's groups and women's circles, is that I'm sure whatever you bring into this specific class, that it probably touches everyone in the class, because they're somehow resonating with you, and you can address these issues for the whole group.
It's exactly how it goes, Leslie. I mean, we're so cut from the same cloth. It's like a mind meld happening here. One of my favorite things in-person classes, which actually we can do on Zoom too, by checking in the beginning, is that when women arrive, I always would start standing in a circle and have them have them arrive, like get into your body, because many of them have just dropped off their kids at school, or they just did this and they're just running in, and they're somewhere near their bodies, but they're not in yet. So give everyone a chance to come into her body, and then say, what is it she's coming to dance for? Is she dancing to release something? Are you dancing to gain clarity? Are you dancing to expand into more joy? Or are you dancing to process grief? Like, what is it? And I would have each woman share briefly, just 1, 2, or 3 words. And I always felt like what we were doing is making a big pot of stew, and like the pot, like we're the pot, the circle. And then as each woman said what she was saying, like, I'm grieving the passing of my grandmother, or I'm excited because I'm getting engaged, or whatever. And they put their ingredients into the stew. And I felt like my job was, I'm just there stirring the pot, making the stew. And then we all would have the same stew, because as women, we can hold grief and ecstasy at the same time. We're amazing like that. And so every woman would get what she needed. The thing is, real important for anyone listening, when you dance, make sure you do take the time to know what it is you're needing. You'll get it if you can just come in and say, oh man, I'm really needing to be slow and gentle today. So then whatever dance practice, you dance it for you, slow and gentle. You come into your dance class or whatever, and you say, you know what, I need to just get out some frustration. And then you'll get that out of it, because you'll approach your dance that way. And so even in a room, I'm very aware when we have a group, whether it's on Zoom or in live in person, one woman has just had the best orgasm of her life, and another woman is deeply sad or fearful, all at the same time. And they can all get what they need out of the dance.
But that's also such an important self-care thing, to just check in with yourself, because we don't know. And it's good to put that in a practice. I mean, for me, I always try to recommend just like setting an intention, but that's not the same thing, because that intention could be that I want to start writing my book or something, and have absolutely nothing to do with emotions. So yes, to just take that time at the beginning to check in with yourself, to see what those emotions are, because I think we've stopped asking that question. I know when I got divorced, a friend of mine got divorced at the same time. So we had this, like, we met every day and we read all the self-help books and I don't know what. And I remember them all saying, you know, you have to write down what you want in your life. And I didn't know. Like, I realized that nobody had ever asked me that question of what did I want. And I just didn't know how to respond. So that was like my biggest first hurdle, was to stop and go inside to find out what it was that I wanted. I was always busy doing what I think I should do, but what did I want? No one had asked me that question. So yes, to start a dance practice every time, just checking in, I think is a wonderful self-care way to begin a dance or anything.
It helps so much, because there's a part of me whenever there's a reason for every movement that I'm suggesting. There's a reason if I'm having an arm go up that I'm suggesting you look up, because I'm wanting to maybe open the fascia. I'm wanting to open the side of the heart or lung. I'm wanting to open the throat. So there's a reason for the movements that I make. And I don't want it to just be follow the leader, do what I do, because then a person could leave her body and just be following me. Like in the old days of teaching high impact aerobics and step aerobics, I remember people were so focused on, because back then I thought that the goal was just to keep their minds busy and make a lot of changes in the choreography to keep them engaged. So they were so focused on me that if I just reached to adjust my bra strap, the entire room would adjust their bra. Like the men too. The men would like do like that. I don't know why is my thumb going inside of my shirt here? You know? And so I had these realizations that, wait a minute, they're not even in their bodies. And in the old days, at the end of class, sometimes people would say, oh gosh, you really hurt my back today. And I would think, now, did I hurt your back, or were you the one doing that? Like, it made me realize they're not even in their bodies. Because I would say, do you know which movement did it? And they go, I don't know when it happened. I just know it hurts now. And that's because they weren't in their bodies. And so it's one of the things that I struggled with as an old school aerobic teacher. I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't know what to do about it until I started understanding this whole mind-body connection and healing, until I started doing things like Nia and yoga. Amazing. If you ever see a Nia class near you, go take that one. Yoga classes, these are kinds of classes that are mind-body integrated, hopefully, depending on teachers and everything. But that's when I started realizing, we need coaching to be in our bodies, because even in a yoga class or any kind of class, I think we tend to want to perform. I mean, we tend to want to do it like the teacher is doing it, and then we leave ourselves. So I like to just keep slowing down and having them self-reflect and remember, like, where are you feeling it now? What does it feel like now? And now what's happening? Right. So,
but I think that's really hard for a lot of people, because we've been so programmed that there's a right way to do things, and that you need to do it the right way, which is the way the teacher said. And so I find that sometimes people are really uncomfortable when you say, do it the way you want to. But I think you brought up a really important point, which is that people need to take responsibility for themselves, that you are the guide. You're going to suggest things to them, but it's not your body. Their body is not your body. Whatever you did didn't hurt your back. So if it does hurt their back, they shouldn't do it, and they need to take responsibility for that. And I think that at least for me, that's been a really big hurdle, is to get people to, we want to give our power away. I think the institutions, education and the medical institutions, we always want to give our power away to some expert. And they're not an expert for us. That, again, is a consciousness that we really need to change, because everything isn't right for everybody. And so to dictate, I'm preaching to the choir.
Preach, sister, preach. I was going to say, when you said people need to take responsibility, I wanted to say, just put a period there on that sentence and make it in bold type, like the Sunday morning paper, the big headliner. We must take responsibility for our own bodies, for our own thought patterns. Even we may have all the reasons in the world for why we have things happening, but at this point I love, I'm sure you've heard this, but taking the word responsible and say we are response able. We're able to respond. I'm able to respond now, given this package that I have, and given this ancestry and this injuries or anything, whether it's emotional injuries or physical injuries, given all of this, I'm still the one that's able to respond. And I need to come in and ask myself, is this a match for me? Is that a match for my health? Is that a match for me? Yeah. Oh boy. I mean, right there, Leslie, I hope so many people hear you say that.
Well, and I think the other interesting thing is that that's not what that word has come to mean.
No.
To be responsible has come to mean, if I said I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, even if it kills me. And that isn't what what you said is true. You're response able, but that isn't that. In order to do that, we need to be dynamic, and people have stopped being dynamic. They've started to be just fixed in what an outcome might be, or whatever they said they were going to do, and that is what they think being responsible is all about. But I agree with you. In fact, that same That same phrase came to my mind when we started this conversation, because I agree. We need to be able to respond. And again, Charles Darwin, who's often misquoted, is really was about the survival of the fittest being the most adaptable. And this is a piece that, again, people don't talk about anymore, but adaptability and being dynamic is what is really how we're going to survive and how we're going to grow, because you need, again, to be able to respond to your own whatever's happening inside of you or outside of you, and not what's happening to the person that's standing next to you. So not that they're not important, but you're not responding in the same way that they would.
Right. And I love this conversation. And I would even ask you, I know you're interviewing me, but I would ask you. It makes me want to ask you, because I know how I feel. What would you say? Because how does dance help you be more adaptable, more able to respond? How would you say it? And I'll say it too.
Well, by again, that feeling of being completely present, so that you are responding to whatever is happening, rather than, this is what I have a problem with. I don't have a problem with choreography. Choreography is really easy for me. Yeah. I have a problem with wanting to give people choreography, because I would prefer that they allow whatever needs to come out. But that's kind of how I started with what I was saying, because that seems to be a problem. If I don't give people choreography, they feel lost. And I understand that they don't know exactly what they're doing. They haven't done this before. So maybe that's a goal, to just allow the movement to come out of you. But again, to kind of give some kind of choreography, but not anything that's so structured that is going to make them not respond in the way that their body wants to respond. So the kind of dance that I do is very free form, even if there is choreography. And I like to use the music to create the path or the journey that we're going to take. And then how do we respond to the music, to whatever sounds we're hearing or feeling? And to me, that's where the skill building comes. If you just keep dancing to different kinds of music and you keep responding and reacting in different ways to whatever it is that you're hearing, that I think is where we build this skill. And again, to keep changing the music so that we keep responding and reacting to different things, and to learn to be more dynamic. I've felt for probably at least the last 10 years that's really our goal at this period of time, is to return to embracing the unknown and being dynamic. And we were talking about this before we started, that this period of time in particular, I think, has challenged people to learn how to be dynamic and to learn how to deal with different situations that maybe none of us have dealt with before, I'm sure. Well, I'm not sure. Other people may have had similar experiences for other reasons, but to have it be a global thing, I think, makes it unique. So, yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Everything you said, here. And as I'm listening to you and experiencing your comments about choreography and freedom, to me, it's that experience is the embodied experience of having healthy masculine qualities and healthy feminine qualities, both in my being, that whether your gender is a male or female or anything, we all have both masculine and feminine qualities. And so for me, a structure or a suggestion of a choreography, a framework within which to express and feel, I just like that part. And also, this is another thing that I'd love to ask you about. If you noticed, I love taking every kind of movement that I can and taking classes from all kinds of teachers. And I've enjoyed quite a few experiences of Gabrielle Roth's 5 Rhythms. And which is, I'm sure most of your listeners, if they're listening, they know what that is. She's famous, but I may not get them right. I think it's like flowing, staccato or rhythmic staccato chaos and something. Anyway, but what I noticed in those classes, because there isn't really structure, it's all freedom with the music. People might be going wild, so it looks free, but I started noticing after going to quite a few of them that while it looks wild, they actually are repeating the same movements over and over in a comfort zone of their own. And when I became aware to be able to see the energy of some stuck emotions, I realized that if they don't have any structure, if someone doesn't kind of force them out of their comfort zone a little, what they'll do is they'll create movement patterns that don't access that one place of stuck emotion. They'll move all around it. Like it'll be shoulders and head, but they won't come right into the chest, for an example. Like that's just an example. And so when I started playing around with that, I thought, I'm gonna actually make them do some things that they won't want to do, just to kind of crack into those areas a little bit, not to make them look like me or be perfect choreography, but more to give them some guidance into some places they would otherwise choose not to go. And that's worked out pretty well for me to do that, to give a little of that and then set them free and then come on back in. And also it's so great when you're teaching and you can see everybody in a room, you can start noticing, oh man, 8 out of 10 women in here won't move their hips. They're moving everything but their hips, or they're, look at this. So interesting. They're not allowing forward and back motion of the chest forward and back. There's chests are frozen, sunken chests, as an example. So sometimes I see the place for choreography to get them in there, but not to hammer it in like you got to get it right. So it's that fine line.
But I think you challenge them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But again, then they have to respond by saying, this is how far I can go with that, yes, or I can't, or I can only go this far. But if you never approach something, then you don't even know if you can go in there. And I think that for me, in my classes, I do a lot of repetition, mm-hmm, but it isn't repetition because you're always going deeper. So I think that you can do a repetitive movement, but there always has to be some dynamic to that. It's kind of like the spiral, yes, you're coming back to the same place, but you're not really, you're coming back to a higher place. So I think, yeah, to go in there and then maybe move back and then go in there again in a little bit deeper, or maybe I can't go deeper, but then that also creates awareness that, oh, I can't go deeper. But if you never challenge them, then they don't know. And I'm sure that those people probably don't even know that they're doing the same movement, or they're not doing other movements, just because when you say be free with something, you tend to go into certain things that you're familiar with, but we all need to be challenged.
We do. And I don't
Climb that mountain.
Yeah. Joan Borysenko wrote a book a long time ago called something like the Biopsychological Cycles of Women's Spirituality. I don't know, that's not the title, but it was a pretty heady title. And in it, she says that women's spirituality moves like a spiral, but the masculine is like a ladder, like Jacob's ladder, wow, right? But the feminine spirituality is a spiral. So it looks like we're going backwards sometimes, but we're never going backwards. We're spiraling. So I love that you use that image. It fits so perfectly.
Yes. And to realize that you are, and that we need to, because in my opinion, coming back to the beginning is an opportunity to see how we've moved. If you don't come to the same place, you have nothing to compare it with. Not that we should be comparing, but you do. You need some sort of gauge to tell you in what direction things are going, not as a judgment, but just as a like, wow, okay, when I did that movement last time, I couldn't do it, but this time I can do it, or this time I can't do it. And why can't I do it? What's stopping me? So I think that always coming back to the beginning is actually a really good thing. Again, those things that we've been programmed that we never want to go back to the beginning, because that means we haven't accomplished anything. And
Not true.
Maybe we haven't, but who cares, right?
So true. It's so rich. You go back to the beginning and you're not the same person you were when you were at that place. Now you bring your whole other self. So, yeah.
And I don't think you'll ever see that until you do it again, until you do go back to the beginning. Right. So again, it's that, maybe you need someone on the outside to say, well, this isn't exactly the same. Or if you can learn to tell yourself that, is this the same as it was last time? And no, it's really not. So, yeah. There's a question that came up. So and I think she indicated that we answered it, but I think it's a good question. So maybe we can just expand on it a little bit. So Sonia's asking, after the blockage of emotions, for what purpose one continues to do this practice? And she mentioned that we have probably already answered that, but I think it's a good point. So, and I think it's what we're talking about, expanding. So let's maybe go deeper into that.
Well, for sure, the spiral probably is answering part of it. And Sonia, thank you for that question. So sweet of you to ask it. The other simple answer is that life keeps bringing us more. And we keep having our rich human experience is one of emotions. And so, for example, even in just one person's life, in one person's life, I experience sadness and fear and ecstasy and frustration and anger and peace, all sometimes in an hour, but for sure in a week. And sometimes I'm a working, Western woman and on the computer a lot, sitting, is because of now being more still in a lockdown situations. I'm not moving as much and I'm not interacting with people. There's not a lot of place for that energy to go. And so it will get stuck. And even though I have all of these tools, I dance twice a week, and every time I dance, I'm dislodging stuff that got stuck in there since yesterday or the day before. So I think that's how I would answer it. What would you say, Leslie? Anything?
Yes, and I think it goes back to what we were just talking about, that things, perhaps you did dislodge something, and then you find 2 weeks later that it's back. Mm-hmm. And that's information for you, that there may be extenuating circumstances or whatever. So I think that, yes, nothing is stable. And I think I think we've already touched on this as well, that I think being dynamic is important, but to never assume that you are healed, because I think that this is a lifelong journey. To me, once you're healed, there's no point to be here anymore. So we again are going to these different levels, but there's always going to be something, and we can always do it better or more easily or from a different perspective. I don't think any of us are probably the same person that we were last week. So to experience these things over and over again, even whether they're similar or not similar, is really important part of our process, because we have that goal-oriented thing of, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to finish this, and I'm going to move on to the next thing. And not why. It's a practice. It's something that you just do all of the time. And yeah, you may do it better or more easily, but it's not something that we want to overcome. We want to stay with the dance.
That's right. Well, and also, I mean, we've talked a lot about the dislodging, but the other piece of class is expressing and expanding, because once that's removed, now you expand in joy, you expand in peace, you expand in love. So it could happen, you show up to dance one day and all you want to do is just do expanding in joy because you don't sense any blockages. So that the purpose of that dance that day is I'm expanding in joy the whole class. And so I'm all for that, because there's infinite expansion of joy. And I'm telling you, the world needs us to have more of us dancing expansive joy, expansive peace, expansive love, expansive harmony. So yeah, that's what I would say about that too. So it's not just the difficult things. We do the housekeeping there so that we can expand. And maybe there are days that I wake up and I'm like, I'm just dancing for joy all day, and I'm gonna dance. There you go. And that's great too. So
we're getting to the end of our hour, but there is a topic that I would like to talk to you about, which is music, the importance of music. You sent me an article that you wrote, and so I'd just like to touch on this subject briefly, because I think that it's an interesting and important topic, just the music. You mentioned that you use music with lyrics to move emotions. What other aspects of the music do you think are important?
Everything.
I opened the can.
The depth, the sound of the voices, whether they're masculine or feminine, whether there is just one person or two or a chorus, even all of that, you can feel it. You can just feel it playing inside of the body. And certainly tempo and style. And, I love a little bit of a surprise or shock effect every now and then. I don't do anything the same every time, but I do enjoy that if there might be a class that's going along that seems like, especially if we're in a heavy time, and I'm attempting to help my community move through heaviness, I may throw in something that's just silly, and it's sort of a little shocking. And then all of a sudden you can see things jangle really fast, and we can move past and move up into joy quicker. So what I will say, all my playlists are public on Spotify. And so if you go to, it's just Deb Kern, and it's the same photo, like I'm going with my white, I have on a white top, and I'm like, that is just Deb Kern, Kern. No S on the Kern, no nothing else, just Deb Kern. And all of them are listed. So you could put on kind of any, I pretty much name them like generally what the feel of that day, what we were doing. And you'll see a lot of new moons and full moons thrown in there. So, I just welcome all of you to, maybe that's the best thing I can say is just go onto Spotify and put on a playlist and see what happens if you follow the trajectory, what happens in your body.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe you can talk just a little bit about how people can get in touch with you if they would like to learn more about what you're doing. And also you have a gift. So
I know we've been talking. So I have a website that's drdebkern.com. So you can go there and see, I do have a membership sisterhood that each month I'm teaching some aspect of feminine energy and helping wake it up. And so that as women, as we get older, because every day we're a little older, but as we get older, doesn't mean that we necessarily shrink and become useless and uninteresting. So what I use that sisterhood is so that every day we can be continuing to expand into more aspects of our feminine energy, our feminine nature. That's my sisterhood. You can find it on there. And then I wanted to invite all of you to experiment or experience a dance class with me online, virtual, in my virtual studio. And so here's the gift. You just go to this it's just debkern.punchpass.com. You'll see this link right here. And when you do, use the code. I made a special code for you, dancer, all caps. If you put that code in there, you'll get one class free. So just you go in as if you're going to purchase a class. And when you go to purchase, type in the word dancer and you'll get a free class. And that way, instead of us just talking about it, you can come have an experience. And every class I teach, I always send the replay, and the replays are downloadable. So if you really loved the class, you could download it and keep it forever. So that's how I do my dance classes. I'd love for any of you to come try it.
Excellent. So again, if you want to find out more about Deb, that's www.drdebkern.com. She's also on Facebook as Dr. Deb Kern, and on Instagram. So you have many ways to connect. And I will put that link for the dance class. I'll put that in the show notes so that you can join, and the code is dancer, all capital letters.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Deb. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your wisdom and you sharing it with us and sharing your classes with us. And I hope everyone will take advantage of that, because that's a wonderful gift. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to meet you. I'm just grateful for this technology that allows us to connect all the way around the world. So thank you so much, Leslie, for what you're doing to uplift the world like this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye. All right. So I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. This is a wonderful way for me to be able to have conversations with people when we're still all separated. So I just want to tell you, next month, we have Marianne Carew, the founder of Dance Alive, and that will be May 16th, which is also a Sunday. So I hope you'll join us for that. And as always, I will be sending out emails, and you can always find the information on my website, www.universaldancer.com. That's one word. And also, please, if you're on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can then click for reminders as well, and you will be notified. Or if you're on my mailing list. And also, I put up all of the recordings as a podcast, so you can find that on Spotify or on iTunes. So thank you for being here. And I hope that you will join again next month. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.